25 years, we've got a 25-year-old whiskey done. We're doing lots of different things throughout the year. And today, what we're really celebrating is the Yellow Submarine, a series of whiskies we released over the years, the last 25 years, that I think show a bit of the lighter side of whiskey, a bit less of a serious side, and actually really, in the early days of Bravani, our marketing budget was zero. Our marketing team, well, we didn't have one. There was no one there. Just an empty office. There was nothing. So we had to think differently about how we were able to talk about our whiskey and get the message out and tell the story. And so we just took every advantage of every story that was slightly unusual that we possibly could. And the whiskies we're going to taste are whiskies from the archives, effectively. The first one is quite, well, in fact, this whole tasting is quite unusual because I've not tasted these whiskies before. So we're doing this live as we go. We're all making up tasting notes, so shout things out from the back, whatever you're getting. Don't just leave me standing here, nose in the glass. Help me out a little bit. The first whiskey, by all means, let's take that and have a grab and have a little sip and a little taste. I'll tell you the story because yes, absolutely. So from left to right, it's good point of order. Left to right in the glass. It's not like the last group we went right to left, and that was very confusing for us all. Left to right. First round is the very first of our WMD series, and the WMD stands for our whiskey of mass distinction, but it could also, I'm sure we're all aware, stand for a weapon of mass destruction. So back in those early days in Bravani, we reopened, we were releasing, working with stocks where there was gaps, there was stocks that were up and down all over the place, and making releasing all these different whiskies all the time. One of the fun things we were doing to make whiskey more accessible for people, so we had set up web cameras around the distillery so you could watch, if you couldn't sleep one night, it's okay, you could tune into the webcam and you could watch Budgie on the stills. And he'd be sitting there with his cup of tea, a couple of biscuits, and you could watch him drink that tea and eat those biscuits, and soon you would be falling asleep. It was a public service, so we could do that. It was quite nice that anywhere in the world people could watch us making whiskey. And we got there was an avid watcher, these webcams, who emailed one day to say, guys, one of your web cameras has stopped working. And of course, we were very grateful and replied back to say thank you for letting us know. But an island people are very curious. Has anyone been to Ireland? And you find out when you get there and you go into the co-op and you're buying some groceries, people are saying, so who are you and where are you from and how long are you here, and before you know it, you're telling the life story as you're buying milk and bread. So the same kind of thing happened here where when we were asked, told about this web camera, one of the guys in the shop went back to say, oh, thanks very much for letting us know. And I noticed on your email signature, it's a threat reduction agency, branch of the American Defense. Tell me more about that. That's quite interesting. And they said, oh yes, sir, we monitor threats around the world, and we want to make sure that, they go back to like the early 2000s and weapons of mass destruction. Quite at the time, quite a relevant thing for them to be doing to be checked up. And they said, well, look, we were just monitoring your site and the process of distilling whiskey and making chemical weapons are very similar. And we noticed that you were bringing in lots of equipment to the distillery and lots of extra tanks and stills. And just checking in to see how things are going. And you can maybe tell that we're making the most of the story because it was probably somebody who happened to enjoy drinking whiskey to go out to the threat reduction agency. Very quickly, we turned the story around to kind of say, do you know what? Our whiskey is a whiskey of mass distinction, not a whiskey of mass destruction. And we will use this as a way to kind of release a bottle of whiskey to have some fun. So the bottle that's getting passed around this WMD is a 1984 Bravani, single cask, and on the label is a bottle of whiskey, and on the other side is this side. And cleverly we've differentiated the two so you can see how they are all not to be confused. And the reason we chose a 1984 vintage was of course the George Orwell wrote Big Brother. Sorry, 1984, and they were talking about Big Brother and who's always watching you, which happened to be the case to us. So this got us into the newspapers, it got us noticed, people were talking about what Bacardi was doing. So this kind of, for 25 years, kind of thinking back to some of those stories, because of course you celebrate an anniversary and a milestone, you start looking back at some of these stories, and that's a great story. And we released, say, 440 bottles. This is a really unique whiskey. I mean, the series here that we have, I think it's probably one of only one or two of these entire series together. This whiskey is gone, so being able to taste it as well is really quite something. So that was bottled in 2005. So a long time ago. And actually, when you think about it, 1984, bottled in 2005, so beautiful whiskey. We bottled this at 46% alcohol. So you can see when you look at when you raise that in the glass, it's a little bit cloudy. So this gives us another kind of opportunity to talk about something we've been banging the drum at Bruichladdich for all these years. It's natural whiskey. It's unchill filtered, it's the natural panel, we've not added anything, we've not taken anything away. And what you see with a natural whiskey is the oils will react and you'll start to get that haziness as the whiskey cools or rises in temperature. So you get this kind of thing where a lot of people ask, well, why is my whiskey cloudy? And it gives you the opportunity to say, well, because it's natural. We've not taken anything away, we've not added anything. 46% is a higher strength, but by not taking out the oils, when you nose and taste the whiskey, it's not aggressive, it's very soft, it's very sweet, it's very succulent. And aged in pre-filled bourbon barrels, this gives us a beautiful expression of Bruichladdich. So not only is it a great story, it's a beautiful whiskey as well. So has anyone... should we taste it? Sorry, as another point of order, never wait for me to say, and now let's taste the whiskey. Just get stuck in.
Can't believe you, Mayor. I didn't want to get aroused.
No, that's it. Never. So just nose and taste as we go. That's the reason whiskey. Old school Bruichladdich. What's lovely about this, when we think about, again, what we've done over the last 25 years, when this whiskey was made, Bruichladdich was owned by White Mackay. It was owned by a big multinational company. And Bruichladdich was used primarily to make whiskey for the blending market. And there wasn't much single malt. And so, a lot of people assume that it's all about volume, it's all about getting as much whiskey out of it as possible, as cheap as possible. And the amazing thing about the whiskey that was made back then in the 80s and the 90s is that it's made exactly the same way today. So with all the freedom that we have in how we make our whiskey, and we think about the barley varieties, we think about the casks we use, we think about how we distill, we can really think about the barley and where the flavour's coming from and explore different things. So that's one thing that's changed. The quality of the casks we fill are incredible. But in terms of how we distill, we can't do it better than it's been done back through the 90s or the 80s or the 70s. And when you look at the logbooks in the distillery today, and you look back at them all these years, the process is the same. This is an amazing thing, this legacy, when tasting this whiskey, the legacy we have is the quality of the spirit that's been distilled at the back. So as we taste these whiskies, what we'll find is there's going to be a thread of quality, a thread of style through all of these whiskies. Some are distilled, or this one distilled in 1984. The next whiskey distilled in 1991. And this, again, has a great story. Beautiful whiskey, and again, it's that point of order. But let's just nose and taste and enjoy this whiskey. And I'll tell you the story because when this whiskey was released, so this would be, well, I forgot when that whiskey was released, but
I think that, well, the Submarine founded in 2005, so maybe
2005,
2006.
yes. So I think it was a 2006. Let's say it's a 2006 release, so we'll go for that. So when this whiskey was released in 2006, we're still in the time where anything we could do to get attention, to get our name out there, we're going to do. And the story for this yellow submarine whiskey, and again, as the bottle goes around, you'll see the label has a yellow submarine on it. So it's not your typical kind of Scotch whiskey, which is very important. We don't do things the typical way. We want to have a bit more enjoyment, a bit more fun in the whiskies we make. This whiskey was bottled because a local fisherman, a guy called John Baker, when he was out fishing off the coast of Port Ellen, he saw, they were fishing for crabs and lifting creels, and they saw in the water this yellow object, whether it was a buoy or a float or a bit of rubbish of some variety. So they went over to have a look, and very quickly they realised this was an actual yellow submarine bobbing around in the water. And of course, John, the dutiful fisherman, knowing what he has to do, he got on the radio and he got onto the Coast Guard to say, look, we found this yellow submarine, we're going to tow it into Port Ellen, and can you please let the MOD know, because there are very big red stickers on this yellow submarine saying this is the property of the MOD. Can you let them know where it's going to be, and we'll get it to Port Ellen safely. So when they arrived in Port Ellen, towing this yellow submarine, another fisherman with a bigger boat and more winches was able to lift, Harold Hastings had to lift this yellow submarine onto the quay. And they then, Harold was a member of the Coast Guard, heard back that actually there was nothing to do with the Navy, nothing to do with the MOD, because they don't lose submarines, right? Nothing to do with us. So, Harold thinking, well that's the reward money, John, we're not getting anything from it. Harold took it and he put it in his garden, and it became a bit of a local landmark for people to get pictures with. And that was it. Of course, if Harold had it, if anyone did come to collect it, he wouldn't let it go without a few quid. So as the time goes on, basically the Navy turned around and go, actually yes, we have lost the submarine, and we are going to come into Port Ellen and we're going to take this thing away. And they came in very, very early in the morning, so that nobody really saw what they were up to. But this is Isla where everyone knows everything, and so waiting for him to appear was not only John and Harold from the Yellow Submarine, but Mark Rainier, who is the CEO of Bravery, with a case of whiskey with a Yellow Submarine on the label, because it's a great story. It's a great thing to be able to get out there. You know, if the weapons inspectors are watching it, the Navy are out there sending submarines around looking at what we're doing. It was too good an opportunity to miss. And so the captain was given a case of whiskey, and we were allowed to use the story in the bottle of this whiskey. So again, a distillery that wasn't taking itself too seriously. And this whiskey, as we, again, I hope you had a taste. All got there? Good. This whiskey was distilled in 1991. We bottled this as a 14-year-old. It was aged in a mixture of bourbon barrels and some Rioja casks. And that's quite unusual at that time for the whiskey industry. And again, thinking about the stories, they're great, but coming back to the whiskey, this tells a story of what we were doing in amongst the warehouses, where Jim would be, so Jim McEwen, the master blender, the founders of Bravery, or refounders of Bravery in 2001, Jim would be going through the warehouse and would be looking for these casks and checking the quality, and where the wood wasn't quite good enough. The spirit has always been good, as I've talked about, but where the wood is destined for the blending market, they're not filling the best quality wood. So where that needs to be improved, and we need to rejuvenate that whiskey, we wouldn't just be using your sherries or your first fill bourbons. With Mark Rainier's time in Kaufman, their contact with the wine industry, we would be looking all across France, across Europe, across everywhere to find the best wines that had the best wood, the best oak, so we could actually improve the quality of our spirit even further. So when it's resting in retail wood, not much is happening. If you can put that into the Rioja, and you get this amazing colour and this amazing flavour, and the French gives it this lovely spice. When you nose this and taste this, I mean, you can see the colour is much darker. The influence of the red wine, the French oak is bringing so much. And nosing that again, that lovely spiciness, that lovely fruit that comes through, it's a beautiful, beautiful draft. So while we have fun with how we would market our whiskey or bottle our whiskey, underneath it all, the quality of what we do, the quality of the spirit, quality. The whiskies we're putting out there are incredible, and that has always been the case. One thing probably we should look about, I'm just going to see in the glass here, is that if you have any whiskey left in your glass, and you give that a bit of movement, and you start to see the legs, you start to see the texture, the legs coming down the side of the glass. This is a really important thing when we talk about bottling up higher strength and a natural whiskey. The oil is so important to carry that flavour. So that's why we would always bottle at 46 as we talked about. And actually now 50%. So we'll come to that with the last round. When we made our first Yellow Submarine, lovely moment, amazing whiskey. Years go by and we'll move into our third round. We decided to re-release our Yellow Submarine. So your third whiskey is Yellow Submarine, aged for a further, it was 25 years old, so aged for a further 11 years. And the reason we re-released it is, I mean, there's many variations of the story, which is probably true of most stories in Scotland, where, you know, you kind of want to just make the story better than what actually happened. Exactly that. But the kind of version of the story I'll tell is that when we were sitting in the boardroom having a management meeting, in that room was a man called Carl Reedy. The late Carl Reedy is no longer with us, and Carl is our head of comms. And just a wonderful man, a really lovely man. And while, I know, maybe I was banging on about how many cats we filmed or what the production level was, Carl was on his phone looking through emails and things, and he got a message from a guy that lived in the village who had been scouring eBay for goodness knows what, where he came across a Yellow Submarine for sale. And so he messaged Carl to say, "You guys want to buy a Yellow Submarine? I just spotted one on eBay." And so in the middle of me talking about, yes, and we filled X amount of bourbon barrels just now, and our production volume so far is, all of a sudden Carl goes, no, wait, forget this. Do we want to buy a Yellow Submarine? Do we want, and of course then the story comes out, yes, let's buy a Yellow Submarine. And so on the Whiskey Festival day, so of course we have Big Sheila, big festival of celebration of whiskey in Ireland. We decided that at a particular moment, Simon, our CEO, would start to address the crowd. And he would do this on the stage in the middle of the yard with 2,000 people all watching him, and he was talking about some of these amazing stories. He started talking about that Yellow Submarine story. Alan was behind the stage with a big telehandler with the Yellow Submarine on it, and as Simon was telling the story, this Yellow Submarine appeared, rising above him, behind him. So at that moment, that was our cue to get a big 4.5 litre bottle. So there we go. Thank you, Douglas. So Simon was on the stage.
That is the Yellow Sub on a crane on a high ab being lifted above the stage.
The Yellow Submarine re-emerged that day. We bottled this whiskey. It's the same whiskey but aged further. So it's the same whiskey we had originally. When you taste this, that difference, the extra time in the cask, has really changed the whiskey. And actually, when our second dram was very fruit forward, lots of influence from Morocco, aging this for the next few years in refilled bourbon barrels, we're really getting back to that part of Bacardi, that lovely kind of creaminess, that lovely vanilla, that lovely citrus coming through really nicely. At 25 years old, that is a beautiful glass. I mean, just a wonderful expression, great celebration of the story. And again, as you can see with the bottle, I mean, in fact, the Yellow Submarine label stood out. When we released this 25-year-old in a bright yellow bottle, that's Bacardi. We're not doing things the normal way. That stands out, that grabs attention. That's really important for us to do so we can tell these stories and talk about this whiskey. So, for our 25th anniversary, looking back, thinking about these stories, these moments, it was time to recreate the Yellow Submarine. So the Yellow Submarine has resurfaced again. So when you see pictures of Bacardi at the moment, you will see Yellow Submarines hanging around all over the distillery in different places. I mean, look, this is what we do, you know, to celebrate where we've come from and where we're going. This is one of the things we want to look back on. So releasing this, I recreated this with the Yellow Submarine, the same as the very first edition. But again, when we think about the story of the liquid, it's not just refill bourbon aged in, refill bourbon barrels and aged in some Rioja casks. It's about the development of those 25 years, the things that we've learned, the things we've developed. So this whiskey is made with about 75% first fill bourbon, and then about 25% aged in first fill Bordeaux red wine casks. And I won't give you the name of the chateau. That's not really important. What's really important is the quality of the wood, the quality of the spirit, how they've sat. These casks sit in the warehouse down in Port Charlotte. You watch them develop, watch them mature, and then think about the flavours that we are developing with these amazing wine casks. So it's not just about working on the stock to get the best of it because the wood hasn't been good enough and then what have we done to improve it. This is about the quality of the wood that we fill, this is about stock that we're laying down for the future. So when you taste this whiskey, it's a different take on the Yellow Submarine. 14 years old. Again, if you have any of that second gram left, it's great to be able to compare and think about the development, the change, the difference in flavour. What we do at Bacardi is never try to recreate the same thing, never try and make the same whiskey all the time. It's about evolution, it's about moving forward because nothing in life ever stays the same. Always about evolving, always about developing, and that is in the stock we lay down, the spirit we make, and it's a lovely, lovely brand to celebrate 25 years. I think I've kind of run out of stories at this point. No, listen, thank you very much for coming and enjoying a few rounds. And obviously, we'll go and we'll have a little celebration of Yellow Submarine in next door. And we can chat more about anything that comes up. But can I just say thank you very much for coming and sláinte.
Cheers.